the memory of what happened to you is more than just a memory. There is self-identification with the memory. In other words, it's not perceived as just something that happened to you, but it becomes part of who you perceive to be. Now, almost everybody has, in one way or another, been a victim of other people, but in some cases much more so than in others. It's the question, what do you do with what happened to you, what was done to you? How do you deal with what was done to you by other humans, whether it happened in childhood or whether it happened later in life, whether it was a relatively minor thing or whether it was a very serious form of abuse? How do you deal with that? Now, the ego, the human ego, is always looking for something to add to its sense of identity. It's looking for a stronger sense of identity because it always feels I'm not enough. So it's trying to add something that it can identify with, so add to its sense of self. And it very often happens that the memory of having been abused is used by the ego and is added to the ego's sense of self. So that means you not only remember what happened to you, the memory of what happened to you, which is a bundle of thoughts and emotions that go with it, the memory of what happened to you is more than just a memory. There is self-identification with the memory. In other words, it's not perceived as just something that happened to you, but it becomes part of who you perceive to be. So I am a victim of that. It's not that this was done to me, but I am a victim of. So it's the transition from memory to self. That is the victim identity. The ego does that because victim identity is a very powerful form of identity, a very powerful form of ego. And particularly in cases where the ego does not find sufficient things that it can identify with in this world, because the most common form of identification, for example, is with the way you look better than others, so you can identify with that. If you look worse than others, of course, that could become part of your victim identity because you've been treated unfairly by life and life has made you look worse than others. That could become part of victim identity. Although that's not actually abuse, but it could also be incorporated into victim identity. However, so normally what people identify with, or ego identifies with is appearance, which is physical appearance, or the body, what you external looks, even what you put on the body is then regarded as part of the body. So clothes become something you identify with because they're on the body, so they're perceived as being part of you. Possessions, a common thing, what I own this car, you don't. Therefore, I feel a bit stronger in my sense of self because I have a Lamborghini and you only have a VW or bicycle, so I have a stronger identity compared to others. House, any form of possession. Then we have social function in this world, position that you have, social position in this world you identify with, that you feel gives you superiority. With every ego identification, the most important thing is superiority, a sense of superiority. The ego seeks that. It cannot tolerate inferiority. So superiority, whether it's possessions, looks, appearance, achievement in this world, social position, oh yes, knowledge. Some people who are intellectual or highly educated, you can identify with that and feel superior to many other humans who know much less than you. Ego is looking for something. Now it could be knowledge, it could be things like resentment, so that's a great one. Grievances towards other humans, that's a big one. That's the ego can have anger towards other humans or groups of humans. He says, oh God, so the ego can get in there, identify with those thoughts, and gives you a sense of superiority. The question is it just a memory, and do you recognize what was behind it, or is it more than a memory? Is it something that becomes endowed with a sense of selfhood? Then you have a collective victim identity that is also very powerful. And this is to say that that's an illusion, is not to say that these abuses did not happen. The illusion is, what are you doing to yourself by deriving your sense of identity from this thing that happened in the past? To transcend your what was done to you, you can overcome the effects of it, you can go beyond it, you have the power to go beyond the abuse that was done to you, which every human has that power. You can never discover that power if you are trapped in a victim identity. So the power to transcend, to go beyond what was done to you, not to be held back by what was done to you on an individual level or collectively, the power to go beyond it is you do not have this power as long as you remain trapped in a victim identity, because the ego does not want to let go of being a victim. Once something has been incorporated into the ego does not want to let go. It becomes part of it is precious to you.